All right, welcome back to the course. We're now ready to create our new note within Folder Notes controller, and then insert that data into our filter notes and our notes, and reload our table view, okay? Or insert rows into our table view. So what we're gonna be doing in this save new note method is very similar to what we did in Folders controller where we insert a row, okay? So it's gonna be very similar to what happens in this save button, right? In our alert. So what I want you to do is go over to folderscontroller.swift and go into handle add new folder. Then what you're going to do is you're going to copy these three lines right here, okay? Next thing we're going to do is go into note detail controller and actually go into folder notes controller. Then what you're going to do is instead of printing it, paste those lines in there, those lines, and let's comment these out, okay? Now, we already know we're going to use insert rows, so we'll get around to that later, but the new folder needs to be a new note, right? So what we'll do is we'll uncomment that and we will say new note. And then what we're going to do is say create new note, and we need to pass in the folder of which we are going to create it with, okay? We also need to pass in the data for this new note. So what we'll do is we will say title, date, title, date, text, and then note folder, and we'll say self.folder note, folder data. Okay, so this new note is going to be corresponding to the note folder in folder notes controller, okay? So if I go into here, let's say I click into social media, that folder data is now the social media one, right? So if we pass it into here, we're passing in the social media folder, which we will associate this new note with. Let's go to our Xcode data model. We have our note, and I'll go to this view, and you'll see that the inverse is notes. Okay, the destination is note folder. So the destination, the note folder for this note is social media notes. Okay, social media. So let's go ahead and create this function by copying this declaration here, and let's go into our core data manager. Let's go to the bottom here, and I'm going to comment it out note functions, okay? Next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to say func and paste that in there, create new note. Now this title needs to be a string, this date needs to be a type of date, and this text needs to be a type of string. And then the note folder needs to be a type of note folder. Okay, so now what we can do is we can create a new note in here and associate it with the note folder, and I'm going to show you how to do that right now. Okay, so what we're going to do is say let context is equal to persistent container dot view context, and then we will say let note is equal to ns entity description dot insert new object. For entity name, note into the context, and we're going to cast it as a note, right? So if you're confused of this syntax, let me just show you up above in our code where we did this before. You'll see in create new folder, we have very similar syntax, okay? It's the same so far. The only difference now is we're going to be setting more than one property. We're going to be setting all of the properties in note, not just the title, okay? So notice the title in here, and then notice in here we have date, text, and title. And then in here, we only set the title, but this time we're going to set the title, the date, and the new text, okay? So let's copy this. Let's scroll down, and let's paste it below this note declaration. And instead of new note folder, we'll say new note. And then I'll rename this let to new note, so that's consistent with our above syntax. And then what we'll do is cut that out, and we'll say new note.text is equal to text, and new note.date is equal to date. So we're just setting in the new note that we've created, the new core data object, the titles and the text and the dates, okay? So now what we can do is we can try saving that, and then if it works, we'll return new note. And then if it fails, we will return new note anyway, but it's going to insert, it's just going to tell us that it's failed, okay? And then we have to expect a return in this, so we'll say arrow note. All right, so we're good there, and we have that function. Let's go ahead and utilize it now and insert the new data into our table view, and then basically have it so we're in a good spot to fetch the data. So let's go back into our note detail controller and into our folder notes controller. And let's go ahead and append this to our notes and our filtered notes. Remember how we have notes and filtered notes? I'm not going to explain these two because I assume you know what's going on at this point if you went through the previous videos. But if you're here just to learn about the core data and you didn't even watch the previous videos, basically what you're going to want to do is just append this to notes and to the filtered notes. So new note, and then let's append it to the filtered notes as well. So we'll copy that and append it to the filtered notes. Now what we'll do is we'll insert the rows and we will count the filtered notes instead, okay? Or the notes, either one will work. All right, what we should actually do is insert it straight to the notes, or count straight from the notes, even though it doesn't matter, but it makes more sense to do it from the notes, okay? All right, so we're good there, and it should insert the row. Let's go ahead and reload our data, and let's see it save, but then let's see it not fetch when we open up our app again, so which we'll fix in the next video, okay? All right, so I've inserted the note, or I've compiled the app, I've opened up the social media folder, and I'm creating a new note. Notes go in here. I'm just going to use that as default text. Feel free to type in there if you want. I'm going to hit back, and it inserts the new note as ASDF and new text. Why did it do that? Why didn't it use the notes go in here? The reason it did is because note detail controller, we are hard coding the ASDF, date, and new text. The date is fine because if you use the Notes app on your iPhone, you know that whenever you enter a note and type anything and leave it, it basically gives you a new date because that's the last time you edited it, was right there. So that is perfect code right there for the date. But the title needs to be date label, text view dot text. And then the text also needs to be text view dot text. Now it's up to you what you want to do for the title. You can make it only the first 10 characters of the text view if you want, or you can just use the text view. It's going to cut it off either way, so it works. All right, so put that in and compile your app. And one thing you're going to notice is that ASDF note is no longer there, okay? And it's pretty obvious why. It's because we haven't set up anything to fetch this data from core data. That ASDF note really does exist. It's just that we haven't fetched it. Okay, let's write a new note. I'm going to hit back and you'll see it says notes go in here. Okay, so in the next video, we're going to write a function to fetch our data, and we should be able to fetch back 2 notes. It shows that there's only 1, but we should be able to fetch back 2. So let's end the video here, and I'll see you in the next video.